You can hear me okay? Like, am I coming across loud and clear?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So you just cut your hair, huh?
I realized that I really love having it short, so I'm back.
It seems to fit your character, but I don't really know your character, but it just seems right. Opa. Give me a sec. Just gotta fix this. Hi, I'm Topaz Adizes, and I'm the founder of the Emmy Award-winning series, The End. The End has been an incredible journey for the past 12 years. We've brought in over 1,250 pairs to have incredible conversations. Through this work, I've had the privilege of witnessing the bold and the beautiful and the heart-wrenching, the conversations that reveal us. And what I've learned through these incredible experiences is that life shapes us. Now I'm ready to share these learnings and reflections here with you to dive deeper. We're going to be speaking to people I find incredible. I'm going to be asking them questions that reveal their life's journey. In today's episode, I'll be speaking to Charlie Goldsmith, healer and explorer of the unseen forces that shape human well-being. Known for his ability to work with energy in ways that defy easy explanation, Charlie's healing work has been scientifically studied by institutions like Harvard and NYU. His unique approach to healing reached global audiences through his television series, The Healer on TLC. His real gift lies in helping people rediscover their own innate capacity to heal, connect, and feel. His story isn't just about what's possible. It's about what happens when you dare to believe that possibility itself is real. Well, I appreciate you jumping on, man. I think you and I had a FaceTime before COVID.
That was a long time ago, yeah.
I bring it up because you now have a daughter and a son, and I have a daughter and a son.
Do you?
So
yeah.
The point is, last time we talked, maybe you just became a father, but I wasn't one yet.
Right. So
and now we're
on a similar timeline.
I just kind of have this thesis that like life shapes us. I want to explore that, and we're going through kind of the lens of this quote that I really enjoy. So there's, the first is, the purpose of life is to find your gift, and the work of life is to develop your gift, and the meaning of life is to give it away. And so we kind of go through that arc in our conversation. It's a conversation, it's back and forth.
Sounds good. All right, let's go.
All right. So let me ask you a first question. What is it about you walking in Crocs? What's your dad's relationship to Crocs that he would be surprised to see you walking in Crocs?
So somewhere in the 90s, my dad discovered Crocs. He was in the first people buying Crocs. And he used to be like, they're so comfortable, you have to get some. And we'd be like, well, I'll just speak for myself, would be like, I'm not wearing them, they're terrible. I was in my teens. And he was just adamant that these things were amazing. And, I had a rejection of them, I guess, because, it was my dad suggesting it. And forever I was just like, I'm never wearing Crocs. And then he died a few years ago. And then Crocs have sort of become, quite fashionable. And someone bought me a pair and they're amazing. So I'm like, they're the best things I've ever worn. And it's so interesting because he would be very pleased to have been right. Because it was a battle that he's ultimately won, even though he didn't get to witness it in his life. But I will say that I used to wear, thongs a lot, Australian, flip-flops. I would never wear them again. Crocs are just incredible. So
so comfortable.
So comfortable. And so, yeah, I acknowledge I was wrong. I cannot tell him this to his face, but, perhaps if there's any ability for someone to look down on us, he would be incredibly, like we all like being right. And he was right about this particular thing. Crocs are very comfortable.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but your parents divorced when you were 1, 2, when you were super young, right?
Yeah, I think the truth is they were already kind of wanting to before I was even conceived. And so, I don't even know if I was 1 when they split. It was, I have no memory of them together whatsoever.
Yeah.
I haven't. My parents divorced when I was 3, and the only memories I have are arguments. That's like been a profound initial memory. It kind of woke me up. It was like surviving amongst 2 gods who were warring.
Yeah, it's not ideal, is it? Very tough.
No. In what way are you the continuation of both your parents?
Dad was a successful business person with a major focus really in nightlife and entertainment. So he owned nightclubs in Australia. He was really a pioneer of that space, and he loved to entertain. He was a very original thinker, and so he basically is known for really inventing the nightclub scene within Australia, the instigator of changing the rules to where you could go out and drink and dance, and it didn't require a sit-down dinner. As a child, I grew up in around nightclubs. As a toddler, as a teen, so it was a big part of my life by default. But as an adult, and that is something that is not part of my life. I have no interest in whatsoever. It's interesting when you grow up in something that's so normal for you, but you don't know different, and because that's just literally what I grew up in.
Yeah.
But now my life is tilted far more towards health. I also have had some business experience, but mine is I founded what's become quite a good communications agency in Australia. I don't work there anymore, but I'm still a major part of it. But I focus now on my other work. But to answer your question, my dad has, he's entrepreneurial, and he was very brave with his. If he had an idea, he would follow it through. And I definitely have got those genetics. I have big ideas. I do follow through to the best of my ability, even when they are seemingly impossible. So I've sort of taken that part of him and I've applied it to the skill set I have. And really, to be honest, it's been a very fundamental part of my success is having, ideas, not being afraid to try them, not being afraid to fail, that sort of courage to do things that haven't been done before, which he had, I seem to have as well. So I definitely got that from him. And my mum was always very health focused and very interested in health. And I would say really always years and years ahead of any market in terms of, these niche sort of health things she would discover and years later, would become more mainstream. And that's she's always been like that. And I definitely inherited that one as well. I've always been very interested in health and improving my health. And my dad did not have that at all, but my mum definitely did. So I got that as well. I like to learn about things that can improve my life and help others. And it's just such a strong ingrained interest of mine. It's like an effortless interest, I just love it. And my mum was also a wonderful cook, is a wonderful cook, I should say. And that I come from a kind of a long line of my mum's side of the family are Latvian, and there's just a cooking in the DNA. And I got that as well. I love, health and food and interestingly, I've sort of crossed over those two parts from both my parents. And so, I like to create things. I've had a few food products, had a couple of food companies over the years and health focused. And so that's the collision of these two traits I've taken. Like we said earlier, my parents were divorced when I was 1. There's no good version of that for a child. Obviously it's ideal if parents are at war for them to be separate, but I think that, for a child not to have access to both parents, it's not optimal. Of course, sometimes we have no choice, many times actually, but it's not optimal. And so, I also learned a lot from my childhood experience and the the traumas that were created from that, and I've applied that to how I've brought up my own children in a very positive way. So yeah, I feel like in some areas I have taken, these really, I think, wonderful traits from my parents, and in other areas I've learned from the perhaps unhealed parts of them, and benefited from that as well in being able to see what I'd like to do better.
Well, it's like sometimes you get an example and sometimes you get a warning.
Yeah, exactly.
And sometimes,
and both are wonderful. You need to know what not to do, and sometimes you're only going to learn that through experience and knowing what I don't want anyone to feel like I felt, and so I'm going to do things differently to avoid that. And sometimes adversity is, as hard as it is a wonderful teacher.
When you think of your parents, and I'm talking about your dad and your mom, because I know you have a pretty big family of stepbrothers and such, half brothers, sisters. What was their relationship to you post 18 years old when you started walking this path of, should we call it healing? Should I call it the practice of? And
I did feel, just broadly speaking, without pointing fingers at any particular person, I didn't feel very supported when I did discover, the work I do today. And that was hard at the time, very, very hard actually. But, I also recognized that experience I had was really instrumental for me to, through that sort of suffering, become, I think, quite strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason I don't need to point a finger at anyone, literally, whether it be on this forum or even to their face, is because in hindsight, as hard as it was, the gift I was given was enormous growth from that. And when I look at it at this stage, and I'm nearly 45 now, I'm 44. So I've had time to think about it. I wouldn't be able to do what I do today without having not been supported early on, because it meant that I had to dig deep and have the resolve to do things on my own without a reliance on others. And what that's done is it's made it so I feel like, I can break down very difficult walls.
Do you mean so very difficult walls? You mean in terms of the healing, in terms of entrepreneurship and
entrepreneurship is not, typically, the walls aren't the healing walls are the hardest, because the walls are so big and old. It's a very tough space to be in. I want to create a world where people can discover abilities like mine and be supported and have employment and credibility. And so, I've chosen to do very difficult things in places that are quite abrasive. And if not for having a difficult experience when I was younger, I don't know that I would have the skills to navigate that in the way that I do.
So let me play back what I'm hearing. What I'm hearing is that initially, when you came back after 18 at Club Aiden and sharing that with your family and your parents specifically, their reaction to it made it challenging for you such that you kept going in the face of that pushback, and that kind of prepared you for the pushback you're experiencing now.
That I've always had,
That you've always had.
Correct. I think that if you can, there's no pain like the disapproval of your own family. I think, no stranger can hurt you like a family member. A family member can say one word and scar you for life. They have the key to your consciousness in ways that that no one else does. Ultimately, they're the people who programmed your consciousness. They are the literal
Constellation you
software
come from.
programmers of your identity, and the way you think and the way you see yourself comes from family. And if you can continue to do what you believe is right, despite the challenges within your own family or friends or community, I don't think there's much you can't do at that point. If you can do that, it's hard, it's a hard thing. Anyone listening to this that has gone against their family because they believe in what they're doing will know that there is nothing harder than that. Nothing that I've ever experienced that is harder than your gods, your favorite people, the people you trust the most, the people that you go to for advice, the people who you've mimicked, the people you've lived with. When you need to, break away from that safety because it's not safe. Yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, but it's a very powerful teacher.
When I was 21, I finished school. I wanted to be a shadow on the mountaintop of a Marquesas Islands. And I started out in Australia, and I ended up in Melbourne.
Right.
And I was in the streets of Melbourne, and I had my kind of awakening or acceptance of the inner child I was on the streets of Melbourne. I remember then telling my dad the story. When I finally saw my dad after about a year and a half, I sat down and I told him the story of what had happened. And he looked at me, compared to my brother, who was 15 months younger, who looked at me and he says, I understand the words you're talking, I understand what you're saying, but I have no idea what you're talking about. And my dad, he did understand, but he said, you just shouldn't tell people this because they'll think you're crazy.
Yeah, that's exactly what was said to me. Exactly.
Was that what? So what happened there? Did your dad say, "I get it, but don't tell people because then you'll think you're crazy," or was he said you're crazy?
It was a progression, I mean, when I first told them, they thought I was crazy, which I guess is fair enough. And then when I was able to show it, which I have many times, then I was told not to tell anyone. I'm going to embarrass the family. I think that I come from a big family, as you mentioned. I'm one of 9 children, and because my dad owned nightclubs, we're also a very connected family in terms of we know a lot of people. We know more people than most because, if you go to a nightclub once a week and your dad owns it, you know the room, or many people in it. So the problem for me was I didn't get privacy in my new talent that I was grappling with. It would spread straight around town, and ultimately, this is in 1999. These things are still niche, and at my level, they're almost unheard of. So, and this is 25 years later. So back then, there was no chance anyone hearing it secondhand could believe that there was any truth to it, which is completely understandable because of course that people don't know about these things typically. So it was very negative. People thought I'd lost my mind. And so whilst I had found my mind, people thought I'd lost it. Whilst I was doing good for people, people thought I was, being deceitful in some way, so the reality I was living was one thing, and the perception of it was a total another thing. And I mean, I'm sure I still suffer that today to some extent, but at least there's some fairly strong supportive evidence that I do have this effect on people. I've had, television shows and worked in hospitals and done all these things that at least give some weight to my work, whereas I didn't have that. In fact, I didn't have any of that for the first 17 years. So it's a tough thing. I don't recommend that experience. It's very tough.
Yeah.
Much harder than people think. You get people say, I wish I could do what you do. And you're like, It's not easy, to be
Well, I
honest.
think you have like a very clear skill set, but I could also imagine for someone like for me, when I came home to tell my dad, amongst other things, hey, I want to be a artist. I want to be a storyteller. It's like, are you kidding me? How are you going to make money?
Yeah.
What, you're not going to be a doctor or a lawyer or business. Like, what are you talking about? So, that pertains to that too, right? Like people have a calling, they have an intuition, and I kind of find it all in the root of the question. What's the question you're asking yourself? Are you answering questions that your father or your mother or your community or your culture gave you? Or are you creating your own questions to answer?
Oh, I definitely did my own.
Yeah.
But,
right.
So imagine my dad when I wasn't just doing something that was just, so ridiculous sounding, healing, but I also didn't want to charge people for it. So I wasn't even, there was no potential. It's not like an artist where you probably won't make money. It's where it's very hard to. This is something where I was actually saying, I'm not going to. And so, it was, I guess the responses were understandable, even though you'd love to be more supported. When I look back, I do understand that it seemed crazy, but, in the end, I was right.
It sounds to me like how you open the story with the Crocs. With your dad.
Yeah, he was right about the Crocs. I was right about the healing. And you're
right about this. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's like, I see that
I'll give him the Crocs, but I'll take the healing because in the end, I've gone a good distance. I think that very few people have made it as far as I have with this sort of work, and everything I'm doing at the moment, that sort of will come out over the next 6 to 12 months is a big leap for my field. So, I'll bronze some Crocs for him and he can come back from the grave and admit I was right about my work. But having said that, he did actually, before he died, I did the TV show and I was in the news and I was studied in a hospital. And he did get to witness, these things from a distance because I did everything in America pretty much. But the first article that ever came out about me in Elle magazine, I watched him read the article and he started crying. And my dad was not a crier. And he started crying. And I think what was really interesting, I think on one hand, he was very proud, but also I think he realized I was right to pursue this thing that I really knew that was my job. And it's like the interesting thing is it's not like I had a choice. Like when I said I'm going to do this and then people are going, well, why don't you do this? Like Dad was like, why don't you study massage or why don't you do hypnotherapy and just secretly do this healing thing and just be the best hypnotherapist or the best, whatever. And I said, but Dad, that's not what I do. And I want to do what I do. I don't want to hide behind anything. I'm not afraid. I watched him realize, 15 years or more even after I started that I was right. It was not an easy path and that was true too. But my belief as an 18-year-old that I need to pursue this in the way that I need to do it. It was very specific what I wanted to do. And
when was the moment that you knew you were right, quote unquote? Because you said it took 15 years.
I knew.
What was that moment?
It took 17 years I always knew I was right, actually, but it took me a long time to start getting the opportunities, putting me in positions where I could do, what I want to do. So
do you mean like the test at NYU and laying on?
Yeah, the NYU test, which I've done a couple, and I'm being studied currently by a university here in America. I'm about to have another couple of studies happening with really major institutions here, so that's all very close. 2 weeks away from finishing a platform to test people for genuine healing ability. So look for other people like me, and it's a big build. It's taken a while. It's quite a big investment, and so I'm looking to basically support others in ways that I was not, as well as solve a problem. There's 50 million people in chronic pain today in America, and about 1 billion in the world, and people with these abilities can help. That's really my focus. Is I'm trying to solve the problem that 18-year-old Charlie decided to solve, which is there are no jobs, there's no credibility, no one knows these things exist, and I'm going to fix it.
But did you know at 18 that you wanted to solve this problem, or did you know that you had a gift and you didn't know what you were going to apply?
I wanted to solve this problem, and I'm just
from 18.
Yeah.
I have 3 questions. One is, how does your mom respond to it? Because she's more in the health sphere and more. So what was her response to it? 2 is, I want to talk about the wall that you mentioned. And then 3, I'd like to go back to that first time when you were in 18 in the locker room at Camp Aiden, and you realized, wait, what is going on here?
So, I mean, my mum responded well. She was definitely more open. Yeah, she was better. I think still it's hard for people that know you for 18 years that when you're not doing something to suddenly have this sort of profound, unusual talent. It's almost like everyone wants to level you, and really I experienced that from pretty much everyone. Because it was a bit weird, I didn't know people could even do what I do, and suddenly I'm extraordinarily good at it. That's a very weird transition. Like Monday, you don't know how to do something, and Tuesday, you're one of the best you'll ever see. So like that's crazy, right? Yeah. And so I think that was hard for people to see that. Like it's just like bang, I could do it. It's
just
very
turned
interesting.
on. It was just a switch.
It's just a switch. And so, I mean, I was effectively as good at it day one as I am today. I'm better at it. I don't even know what I am, because there is no one knows how good anyone is, but I'm obviously quite good at it. But Mum was definitely a better responder in that sense. What was your other question?
My other question
is,
you mentioned, because you mentioned that, the challenge initially telling the family and getting the resistance and yet knowing to go forward prepared you for kind of the resilience and the endurance and the strength to like go break down any wall. And then we talked initially, you allude to the idea of, in healing, there's walls, there's big walls. And I assume you mean the people that you're offering service to. Can you tell me about that? Like, what are the walls of things? Are they keeping the chronic pain in? And are you opening the wall to let it out?
The walls that exist are not so much that working on people, that's quite easy, but the walls are societal. The walls are that these things don't exist. These things are fraudulent. These things are the devil.
Right.
There's walls everywhere. I mean, there's even walls. I got a message the other day. Someone was attacking me on my Facebook because I don't give the glory to God when I heal people. And the truth is that I have my own belief system, but I don't typically publicly share it because some people believe in God and some don't. And I don't want people to think, well, I'm not into that because he talks about God. Because ultimately, if there is a God, which I believe in, do we want only people interested in that to experience healing from chronic pain and illness? And the answer is no. And there's no God that would want that either. We want it to be for everyone. And so there's even barriers within the community that's open to it based on, semantics, and based on their idea of how it should be. One person says you should charge, another person says you shouldn't. There's just, it's one person says everyone can heal people, another one says not everyone can heal people. Some people call it placebo. There's so much projection onto it. And, one of the biggest problems in this space is that anyone can go and do a very short course and get a certificate on their wall that says they're a master of a Reiki or healing touch or, pranic healing. And that's created a big mess in this space because even though everyone's well-intentioned, what that does is it creates a very difficult environment to find the actual talented people, because the next step, of course, should be to go, okay, well, are you good at it? But that doesn't happen. It just doesn't exist. And so the industry has walls everywhere, and they date back, very, very far. It's very well documented that the most famous healer of all time was murdered, right? So that would be...
you're talking about Jesus? Or
I would say he'd be the most famous.
Right, okay.
So whether he existed or not, obviously people can debate that. But the reality is he was... Whether he's a truth or a story, the story is about a healer. Right. And that is why he is famous. That for no other reason. He's not famous because he was a carpenter. He's not famous because he was, a good runner. He's famous because he could heal people. again, whether it's made up or real, it actually doesn't matter. The reality is he's famous because he could heal people, and they murdered him and created the biggest religion, that exists today. We base the calendar on his birth that is based on a healer. So that's pretty profound, isn't it? That we all universally, no matter what religion we are, we share this one calendar that is based on the most famous healer of all time.
Well, his birth is what? When is his birth? December 23rd? 25th?
Yeah, but the years.
You mean the years. You're talking about the year. Before and after Christ.
Yeah, before, it's actually before his birth and after his birth. So, but the point is that if he's the most famous healer ever, whether again it's true or not true, I believe, people like me, maybe not as talented as him, but give a fair bit of weight to potential truth to his existence, which is beautiful. I think I think that's one of the first things I realized after I started doing it is I was like, oh, there probably was someone doing that. It makes sense to me. So, but in talking about these walls, they murdered him. And then there's a lot of stories of more of the same throughout history of burning of inverted commas witches. And these are pretty big walls. This is an area that's been attacked and attacked and attacked and attacked to the point where people will look at you in the eye and go, I've never heard of that. And it's like, no, you have. You've heard of it because the calendar is based on a healer. You cannot have heard of it more. There's no more famous person on this earth that ever existed, is there?
You talk about in one of your videos I saw on your site that this healing practice, something that's been stolen from us. You literally you said stolen from us. I assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, you're saying this is something that has been in people a viable modality. And
so I know
you do
this. I do it. I see it every day, so I know it. And so the theft is well documented. Someone was healing people at a very high level, at the highest level perhaps, and was murdered. And then they basically wrote into the rules back then that anyone else who has this ability is the devil. And so that was the theft. At some point in time, trademarked one healer and said there can be no others. You'd have to do it very secretly. And to be honest, you'd rather not if you were going to get burned alive. I mean, that's a big penalty for healing. So I think that it makes sense that, over time, it wouldn't take long before people have forgotten. If I knew I could do it and it's 1,500 years ago and my life is in danger, I'm not going to teach my children to do it. It was stolen for sure. And I know this because I can do it. So I know that it's a possibility. I know humans can do it. There are plenty of stories of it. There are people who have different kinds of abilities all around that we see. There's not a lot of validation for ability, so it's a bit of a gap at the moment that I'm trying to repair or to bring in. But there's no question that nature provided a talent within humans that is profound, and we had it stolen. It's very hard to bring it back because no one believes it. So I'm like, hey, check this out. I've done all sorts of things to put it out there, television and otherwise, and people are still like, that's bullshit. It's like,
let me go back to this. So no one believes it, but then again, it's not the placebo effect, and even if it is, if more people believe it, and if it is a placebo effect, then it'll still impact them. Doesn't matter.
But what the placebo effect is. So at the end of the day, if it is a trigger for the placebo, but it fixes people, well, it doesn't matter. Like,
right. But what I'm saying is that I don't think the point of more people believing it is so that the placebo effect can work more. That's one argument. The thing is that then more people who have the talent can come out and cultivate it and share it. That's really what it is about believing.
Yeah.
From what I've seen of your work.
Yeah. Look, I think that, one of the things that gets thrown at it is it's the placebo. But I just to be super clear, if everyone that comes to me has a placebo result, but they get better, the ones that get better, it doesn't matter. They got better. That was the hope, and that was the outcome. And so we should be working out, why can Charlie invoke placebo in people in ways that others can't. So, but my hope is that we will find others that have the same talent as mine. That's what I've built this platform specifically for. That if we find them, then we can hopefully help a lot of people. And
have you met any?
I have heard of people, but because the placebo effect is a real phenomenon. It's a very powerful phenomenon. It's incredible. It's very hard just to take people's own opinion of their work without them having been in an environment that is not conducive to placebo. So if you're practicing at home and people come to you because they believe in healing, it's a very different customer to the one in the hospital. So even if someone thinks that they can heal people, they still might not be able to if put in circumstances that are not conducive to that, because the placebo in some conditions will help dramatically, and even up to 50% of people. So you could literally be thinking you're having an effect when in reality you're not. It's still not bad, like if people are ultimately getting helped from your interaction, but I'm looking for the people who actually have an effect that's well above that. People writing into me saying, I can do what you do, like that's meaningful to me, but it's not the full picture. And I haven't had the ability to go and test person after person until I've made this platform that can do it in a fast way that, we'll be able to test hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds.
Is this all digitally?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an app, but it will connect someone to test their ability with someone who has, a chronic pain of some kind, and we'll look at their results over time, and we'll be able to sort of see the difference between a baseline of, placebo results, which will still be something.
So it connects people. Connects someone to do the test to someone who needs the support.
Correct. But in a very safe, a very safe, private way. It's very well thought through. I've been thinking about this my whole life, half my life. So,
is that the thing you want to do when you're 18 and you realized this is the problem I want to solve?
I didn't know how I was going to do it. I mean, back then, I don't even think we had iPhones. But yes, I mean, essentially, yes. I said to myself, I'm going to fix this. No one knows this stuff exists, and it's good, and they should know, and I'm going to do whatever I have to do. And so that was the intention. And then over time, I practiced and learned what I could and couldn't do, and the ways I could and couldn't do it, and certain conditions, and I learned I could do it over a distance. And then my first focus was to do studies, to be studied, which is harder to get to do than I imagined actually. But that, and then I agreed to do the TV show after I did my first study, and so my first stage was sort of about awareness and demonstration. And then the next stage is taking what I've got from that, which is the ability now to create the platform. And I've got a lot of people that are interested in testing themselves. And I've certainly got, tens and tens of thousands of people in pain that want to be part of helping me do this.
Do you mind telling me the story of the moment that you experienced that day?
When I discovered it?
Yeah. It's just, how does, I'm sure everyone but tell me the real story, not like on a theoretical level, like what happened? I mean, are you sitting there and all of a sudden your hands get heavy and someone walks by, and what was breakfast like before that happened? I mean, how, because if that happened to you, then inevitably it's happening to a few other people.
Oh, well, you think so?
You'd hope, I would hope, and so what happened?
So I was doing work experience at a health retreat in southern Queensland. So that's just the northern part of my country. And health retreats are like a school camp. There's 30 people there, and you sit on these big tables, and it's literally like a school camp for adults, basically. But I was very young. I was 18, and most people were 30 plus, executives and people who were burned out, and I was there doing work experience. I got my food and sat down at the table, and as I went to get my knife and fork, and my hands, they pulled together forcefully, and I was like, That was weird. And it was like forceful. It was not like, I don't even know how to explain it. It was just like, and immediately I was like, that was really weird. And I pulled my hands apart and I could feel like this enormous magnetism between my hands. And I'm sitting there and I was like, uh-oh, like I've lost my mind. I really thought I've lost my mind. I was not thinking anything good. I was like, fuck, I'm in big trouble.
Well, you lost your mind because what? Your hands were...
I could feel something I couldn't see. Yeah, I thought I've gone crazy. Someone opposite is like, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm not okay. I can feel something between my hands and it's like really feels very real. And, I obviously was looking distressed. Probably my eyes were welling up a bit because I'm thinking it's all over. Like I'm
You're going to lose your mind. Like
I'm in trouble. I turned to the person next to me and I don't know why I did this, but it's lucky I did. But I don't know why I did because when I think about it, I thought I was losing my mind, but it felt so tangible. And I turned to the person next to me and I put my hand up and I said, feel this. And this lady put her hand up. And as soon as it got directly opposite mine, she was like, whoa, my God, what is that? And I was like, oh. I was like so relieved. It was probably one of the most relieved moments of my life where I was just like, I went from I'm out of my mind to I'm not out of my mind. Like I'm having a weird experience, but she could obviously feel it.
And her feeling it made you go, okay, I'm not out of my mind.
I mean, literally even then, my whole body just went, like, so then other people started to come up and feel this phenomena coming out of me. And I didn't know what it was, but people could feel it. And this one woman came up. She was the mother of someone in the year above me at school. As soon as she put her hand up and I put my hand up, and my expectation was she was going to feel this thing coming out of me, which people kind of feel tingles or heat or stuff like that, often tingles. And anyway, so as soon as she put her hand up, I felt that there was like this lump in the air. It was like out here that was, no one else had it. And I was like, that's so weird. You've got this lump I can feel that no one else had. It was like this far from her hand. And so I'm like, I don't know why, but I really want to get rid of this lump. And so we sit down by the fire and I'm smoothing this lump out. I'm sitting there. She's actually
like
to my...
touching the, what
not
you smoothing like?
It's in the air. So I'm just smoothing this lump out and I'm completely in some sort of zone and just doing it. And it was quite an effort. I remember feeling quite tired and I got about halfway and I stopped for a second and suddenly I became aware of my surroundings and I look up and she's crying, like proper crying. And there's the whole crowd watching and I go, oh my God, I'm hurting you. Like you should have said something. Because I don't know what I'm doing. I'm so sorry, And she goes, no, please keep going. Like, okay. So keep going. And I get to the point where the lump is essentially not there anymore. I did not know people could heal people. I had no idea. Zero. It was not
all you knew was you felt something in your hands and you felt a lump. You want to get rid of the lump.
That's it. Mm-hmm. And then she starts bending her finger. She said that, I haven't been able to bend this finger in 10 years. And I went back into shock. The same feeling as I had.
Wait, so she told you right that moment.
Right then and there. She knew that I was healing her arthritic hand. She knew what was going on and I had no idea. I knew nothing else. So like I have no knowledge of what it could be. And not one part of me was like, this could be healing something. And then someone goes, heckled in the crowd, why don't you go see if you can walk across the pool? My whole heart sunk. Oof. I was so uncomfortable. I mean, it was one of the worst moments of my life.
Wow.
That feeling.
But wait. Sorry, Charlie. Right before that guy said that.
Yeah.
How did you feel right before that thought entered? She said,
not good. I felt like...
Well, you just healed her hand. You didn't feel like she's crying.
I did not feel good. I felt very it was like almost like a shock of like, what, like I had never heard of it. It was hard enough feeling a little magnetism, you know? I mean, that already threw me a little bit. And then I was like, just like all of a sudden, your reality is like not what you think it is. People can heal people. And it was very tangible. I could feel it happening. I didn't know what was happening, but I felt the whole thing, right? So I felt the lump go. I was a part of the process. So it's not like I didn't feel anything and she said, oh, you touched me and I felt better. I felt the whole process. So I went into a state of shock. It was a very traumatic moment for me.
Even before he said it, even before the heckler said walk.
But then when he said that, it was worse. I mean, they were obviously just saying an appropriate joke, but it was very intense for me. And then I left that room and I ran down to where you could make a phone call, and I called my dad, and that was the beginning of one of the worst periods of my life because my family then were difficult. People would hear that I could do it, and then I had to prove it. Otherwise, you know, for my own sake and really for the sake of my relationships, that I wasn't out of my mind. It mattered to me that they knew that it was real. You know, I wasn't confident in myself that didn't matter at that point. And of course, I was a child. And so, you know, I'm being studied at the moment. I am still proving myself, except not to me, and certainly not to my loved ones. But that was the beginning of, you know, 25 years of continually having to prove myself at levels that no one with another talent would ever have to do. A brutal thing, but I'm very used to it at this point. But yeah, it was hard, you know. It's why when people say, I wish I could do what you do, I'm like, are you sure about that? It's actually, it's a tough one because
because it carries all this other baggage, right? External baggage.
Totally. And you're battling your own reality, and then, you know, you're having to deal with, you're shaking other people's realities. You think if I had trouble with it, then of course everyone who experiences this ability, especially if they haven't before, they're having the same reality check. And it's a hard thing. So you've got to become very good at helping people have that reality shift of, people can heal people. Okay, great. You know, it's a big thing. Some people take it very well. Some people it rocks, you know.
You know, it's funny because I remember the first time I saw Donnie Epstein, who's one of my mentors, do his work. It was at a Tony Robbins event upstairs in the hotel. And I just remember seeing it. And for me, my reaction was like, I felt home. Yeah. I felt like, for me, it was not a shock. It was like, of course. But I seem to meet a few of these people in my life. And I remember seeing the thing with Donnie going, finally, I found it, because I knew it was out there. And now at the age of 37, I'm seeing it in this physical reality in front of me. It was more like an affirmation of an intuition that I had known was true.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people have that response. I think your age probably didn't hurt.
Sure.
You know, I had no problem ever seeing like a psychic on television or whatever. You know, I think the problem was it was me. And and that was a very, very unusual.
Well, let me ask you, it seems like there was, say this, at first act one, where you realize you have it and the shock of having it, then having to prove it over and over again to the people around you. You still have to prove it to other people, but not to yourself. So there must have been this first period of time when you were still testing this out.
Totally.
Can you tell me about the testing? A long time. When was the moment when you fully knew you're like, okay, I've done this for the last 10 years?
Straight away. I mean, I healed a few people at that retreat, and I knew it was just very clear I could replicate it. So I knew I could do it, but I didn't know the scope, you know, like that's what took time, is like, what does it help? What doesn't? How do I use it? Initially, I would get really tired. Sometimes I would get sick. So there was a lot of years and years and years of learning to navigate the ability to navigate my emotional response to the ability, the response to when you can help people, the response to when you can't help people. That's my response. Their response when you can help them, sometimes that was positive, sometimes it would scare them. The response when you can't, the disappointment, and otherwise. There's so much to manage emotionally because you've got your own stuff and then you've got everyone else's. And that's just in the interaction between you and the person you're working on. And then you've got the responses of society. I'd be out as a young person, 20 odd years old, and one that I knew from school come up and go, oh, I heard you can heal people now, in a derogatory way. So you're managing your emotional responses to that and how to deal with that. And, there's a lot. There's a lot is really not normal for really anyone. I do a lot of different things in my life, and there's nothing that has made me have to manage so many perspectives than this work.
What's a tool that you pull out of the toolbox when you need to recharge yourself or get grounded or navigate a situation that you find that you've been triggered by?
Look, a rest is important. Obviously, my health. I keep my health at a very high level. I take my health not in a stressful way. It's just how I live. But my physical health, I consider an absolute critical thing, and so that helps a lot. I've learned, my ability emotionally over time just gets better and better. What was hard for me at 25 is not today. And because I keep digging deeper and deeper into myself to learn to heal, to overcome difficult things, to change my perspective on things, to have that kind of mental flexibility to be like, I believe this today, but, tomorrow I may believe something else. So mental flexibility is, I found, really important. And, and ultimately when I do see the parts of me that need healing still, my own programming, my own responses to things, I do like to address them one way or another. And sometimes that's through a decision. Sometimes it's through communication. Sometimes it's through change behavior. I've also benefited from different plant medicine. Ayahuasca, ibogaine was one I did more recently, which is very special, which were really wonderful tools to help as well. They're incredible healers. And so really there's no length I won't go to in the natural world to grow and learn. And I think that attitude that it's an ever evolving process, growth. And I think that with my work, I had no choice because, like I said, there's so many opportunities to struggle within this work because of the nature of it, because it does challenge people, including myself. And the option is to grow from that and or to suffer it. And I choose to grow and occasionally suffer because we always have ups and downs. But my underlying promise to me is that I want to continue to grow and be a better person, learn and make amends where I couldn't see, areas I need to improve. And that attitude has taken me a long way.
So, for example, what do you think life is teaching you now, right now in this phase of your life?
One of the things I've learned recently, it's actually a really beautiful thing, is that, when people are going through trauma and or have programming that is, born of their trauma and their life experiences, is that when we see that people are having a hard time and they're not their best selves, instead of thinking, if I'm having a bad experience with someone, instead of thinking, this person isn't who I thought they were, I think to myself, this person isn't themselves right now. And that's been a really beautiful thing that I've sort of seen more clearly recently as a way to recognize when there are parts of me that still need healing and equally other people. I give myself this grace now and also to others, but there's a real beauty in knowing that the best sometimes is under someone's trauma. And what it does for me personally is it's giving me the ability to see parts of myself that I would like to improve without seeing those parts of myself as who I am, but actually just seeing it as, sometimes artifacts from the past that are unhealed. And so it gives you space to sort of not identify with the things that, you should change and grow, and where you can improve relationships, and as a parent and as a friend and as a family member. And so I feel like, I forget what your question was, but my answer is, that we are a whole bunch of innocent people with programs running that sometimes we're not aware of.
Sure.
And it's a really nice way to view yourself and others. And it gives you the opportunity that as you see behavior you want to change, or someone gives you feedback, you're able to be like, you know what, I do want to change that. That's not who I am. And that gives you so much flexibility to, instead of being like, well, that's just who I've always been, or that's who they are, you're able to.
Has anyone ever asked you to heal their anger? Has anyone ever asked you to heal like a trauma? Because it's, it's all physical manifestations.
Yeah, a little bit. It's not really my focus, but having said that, I've actually just written a book all about it. So I've written a book. It's, I'm actually really proud of it. I think it's going to help a lot of people, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
As you may have seen, my healing work is very fast and effective on a big range of issues, and very consistent. And I've written what I feel is the emotional equivalent that people can do on themselves, to create very rapid changes in their conscious experience, from anger and sadness and anxieties and things. So, yeah.
Is that available now or not yet?
It will be available in about 2 weeks. It'll start selling.
Oh, great. So what's it called?
It's called Human Medicine.
Human Medicine. Okay.
Yeah, so my whole work is around, between the healing and what's in this book is about the medicines that sit within us, the human medicines. And so I've sort of decided to name both of them the same thing, because I actually think the healing and what I have in this book is actually essentially the same thing. It's our God-given ability to heal.
Tell me, what is the experience of the healing like? Put our audience into your experience. Like, are you feeling their body? Are you seeing a prism off of their body? Do they have to tell you where the pain is? Because I see you asking, how's there? Can you tell, what are you feeling?
Yeah, so I do need to be told where the issue is. If I'm not told, I'm going to just work on people really broadly. So it's a lot of energy wasted. So I'm very specific. So if it's your ear, it's your ear. You just tell me. And then you do see me cup my hands, but the only reason I do that is because if I used my hands over someone, I just do that. I put my hands over and I just focus energy out of them. But when I'm doing it remotely, which is how I do it typically, I just to keep my hands a bit still, because they want to move a little bit when I do it, I just hold them and I hold a ball of energy in my hand. And I could put my hands in my pocket, to be honest. It's not a fundamental part of it. It's just it's almost a habit. It's like I just had to do something, and I've been doing that for 25 years. So
are you seeing it?
Yeah, so I see it sort of in my mind more so, and then what I do is I focus on someone. So if I'm focused on you, I'll just literally bring my conscious awareness into your body. It's not necessarily a super, super visual experience. It's more like I feel it as a knowing, and I can then move energy around and do all sorts of different things once I'm in there. The experience is it's very tangible for me, but it's also very subtle. It's not some very strong experience. But I know I'm having the experience, and obviously then that correlates to people also having an experience. So often people will feel when I'm working on them, they'll very often feel obviously the results from me working on them. But
right. But what do you do once you bring your conscious awareness into my knee? Do you disperse it? Do you warm it up?
It depends.
Just sit there?
It just depends. So sometimes all it takes is the concentration into the part of the body. The most simple things would be just to put your awareness in, and I can make it very, very strong, and that will help, a pretty good percentage of things. But then if that doesn't work, sometimes I'm, I might be sending energy down from your brain right down through to your knee, perhaps to to create communication between, your whole body. Sometimes I might be talking to parts of your body. Sometimes I might be replicating medicines in people's bodies, but that's the intent. There's a lot of different. Sometimes you're pulling stuff out of someone's body. Sometimes you're putting stuff in. It depends. So I would say that what's interesting about it is that there's many different ways that people seem to do these things, and I don't think there's any particular right way. I'm a natural. I was not taught, and so I just have my own way that seems to work for me quite well.
Right, and I know that you teach that to other people in terms of your own way.
I do. I teach
it,
and the feedback has been very positive from my teaching. That people are really able to up-level their practice. So people who are doing Reiki and otherwise do my teaching, we get a lot of feedback that it's really elevated them. But I always teach people that, if I teach you anything as a fact, I've failed, because I have used this as a really creative process. And what I try to do is show people you can be creative with this, really use the energy and work out how it works best for you. And so that's what I try to teach people is like, here, this is how I do it. But hey, make sure you don't let my way be your limit, because
right.
It's just,
that's nice you said.
I'm just one guy.
Why do you think you can't do it on yourself?
I can a little bit, actually. So, I say I can't because it's a lot harder. But the truth is, there's been a few times in my life where I've been compelled to, and has been quite good. But where it doesn't work is if I'm like acutely sick or something. I'm sick. I don't have any energy anyway. So my effect on myself is not great. So like if I'm getting a cold or something, I don't have any effect. But I have had some experiences with some injuries and stuff where I have had an effect, but it's with a lot of effort. And usually I can't be bothered, It's like, so, it's a laziness almost with your own thing, but it's definitely not, I can't do it on myself like I can on others. Like I cannot just instantly take some chronic pain away from myself. That's never happened.
How do you explain that? Like what do you have an explanation for that? Is there
the energy is already in me, isn't it? So, it's already there. So I don't have an explanation. I'll give you my best explanation.
Yeah.
If I didn't suffer, how would I have empathy? And if I didn't have empathy, why would I help people? I wouldn't. People without empathy do not help people. In fact, they murder people. So everything that happens to me that I learn from, I utilize to help people. And so whether it be I've had pain and therefore I have compassion or empathy for people in pain, and I'll go out of my way to help even strangers. Well, that's what a beautiful reason to have had pain. But even my emotional journey and trauma, I've just written a book about it, so ultimately that book wouldn't have been written without my suffering. Most people don't know how painful arthritis is. It's incredibly painful. But most people don't know this. When their grandma says, I have arthritis in my fingers and her fingers are all horrible looking, most people don't understand that she's in a lot of pain. And my work requires me to help people who not only do I not know them, often I'll never know them. I'll just do my job and depart.
Did the pre-18 Charlie want to help people?
I've always been someone who likes to help people since I was little.
Where did that come from? What was the first time you realized that?
I do not remember not being someone who wanted to help people. So I have always. So it might look, without again going right into my childhood trauma, it's possible that some of it, created someone who just wants to help people because, perhaps I missed out on some care as a child. And so there may be a trauma response that's possible. It may be that part of this ability that I've always carried, even though I discovered at 18, it was definitely there prior to that. And,
were there clues?
Clues? Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I didn't see them at the time, but yes, in hindsight, it was there.
Too much? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'll give you one example. My girlfriend, when I was 16, when she found out I could heal people, and I wasn't with her anymore, she said, "I knew you could." She'd get her period and put my hand on her, on her lower abdomen, and she said it would relieve the pain every time. I used to wonder because she used to just take my hand and put it on. I just thought it was warm, and she goes, "No, the pain would go." And there's lots of things like that. She never told me though. She just utilized it. And so some people knew that, and I didn't actually. So, and there's lots of examples like that. And I had no idea.
Are you ever scared that you'll lose it? Does that thought ever come up?
I'm not scared I'll lose it because, I mean, I have life would be pretty good if I didn't have to do this. But I'm not scared I'll lose it. I mean, people ask that a lot, and you just don't even really think about it. Like, if I ever can't do it, I guess I won't do it. And to be honest, the good thing is because I'm creating this way of finding other healers, that may not matter soon. But I don't worry about that. I think that my sense of self would be just fine if it went.
Do you think that everyone has some superpower or super talent, but they don't discover it? Or do you think it's very specific to some people?
I think it's pretty specific. I think that we all have the experience we're meant to have.
Why do we all have the experience we're meant to have?
Well, I think that we all have just different capacity. I mean, if we line up everyone in the world, we're going to run at a different speed. We're going to sing at a different ability. We're not all the same. We're not meant to be all the same. We don't need to be all the same. In fact, if we're all the same, I think the world wouldn't function as it's meant to. And I mean, look, I know that not everyone has the same healing ability because otherwise people like me wouldn't stand out. Every Reiki practitioner would be as good as I am, and they're not. And they're trying, that's for sure. In fact, they're trying harder than I ever have because they've gone and learned it. So we have different roles that we provide as in this giant ant's nest. Some people need to fix the toilet, and some people need to cook the food, and some people need to be the carers, and we are all different. And that is the human experience.
Like, do you think that everyone has a unique capability that they can hone and practice?
In terms of in this category?
No, in terms of anything.
It's possible, but I think that the reality is that whether it's possible or not, the reality is many people are very disconnected from themselves,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that ultimately that the gap between where they are because of their traumas and very rigid belief structures and what you're talking about can be a lifetime's worth of potential growth and healing to get them there that, many people will not undertake. They're sitting there having a bottle of wine a night. That is not the direction. And so could people be capable if they did all the things? Yeah, I would say yes. But will everyone be the same? I would say definitely not.
Right.
But, when people go on a journey of, okay, I'm going to heal myself now. I'm going to feel my pain. I'm going to face my stuff. I'm going to heal my trauma. Yeah, I would say that at some point in that journey, they may well pick up their intuitive capabilities, healing abilities, psychic abilities. But, some people's intuition is in art and some people's is in music. And because it's like this whole world is made up of, like, cooking can be very spiritual and intuitive, and people are, so instead of categorizing the world as like, all the normal things that are not spiritual and then the spiritual, I would argue that they are all the same, and we actually do tap in to the same place, whether you're inventing something, whether you're painting something, whether you're coming up with an idea, whether whether you're gardening consciously, and your vegetables grow bigger than other people's. So I think in that way, instead of thinking of it like, do we all have gifts in the freaky end of the spectrum that are less common? Yeah, I would say the answer is 100% yes for whatever you're meant to bring to the world.
Right.
Purpose can be found in any present moment for anyone.
In 20 years, 30 years, let's say they make a movie about Charlie Goldsmith at this point of his life. right? They're doing a biopic on you. And they cast an actor.
Mm.
And the director's going to talk to the actor, right? It's a director-writer. He wrote the script. What direction should that director give to the actor? What piece of information should that actor know about you so that they could really play you?
Oh. It's such an interesting question. I think that what I would like to think is that he's the same wherever he is.
What do you mean?
So the way I am at home is the way I am in every environment. Not only am I not trying to be anything other than myself, I want to be more of myself, and I sort of bring that everywhere I go. I don't walk into a room to heal someone and suddenly I'm a persona that is different to the human that sits with my children. And I guess if I was trying to tell an actor how to play me, I would make sure that they recognize that I am not a character that is changing depending on my environment.
Mm-hmm.
That would probably be what I would say.
And what do you think people misunderstand about healing? Not about you, not about...
Everything. Even the people who believe they understand it misunderstand it. I think the biggest misunderstanding is that we need to understand it.
The biggest misunderstanding is the idea that we need to understand it.
Correct. It's there to be benefited from, not understood. And we will likely never understand it because it isn't coming from this world as we know it. And so it's there to be benefited from. And the more we try and understand it, the further away we get from it. The reality is that what it does is it helps people who are in all sorts of distress, and we are so intent on understanding it that we're missing out on utilizing it. And it's the biggest error. And then in people's attempt to understand it, they either dismiss it or they project onto it what it must be, how it must be done, and who should do it, and that you must be religious, you must be this, you must be that. It's like, no, we just need to benefit from it. It's there to be benefited from. That's what it's for. We do not need to understand it, just like we oxygen is there for us as well, and we never needed to even call it oxygen to benefit from it. It didn't need a name. It didn't need to know that what it's made up of. It needed to be breathed. And the same with water. We didn't have to call it water. We could have called it anything. We didn't have to know that it's, bloody hydrogen and whatever. We just meant to drink it. And so there are many things like this that nature has provided that, yes, we understand, we think we do. But ultimately we didn't need to. We need to utilize the things that the planet has provided us, the God or whatever consciousness has provided us. And we have this belief we need to understand everything. And it's like, well, no, we definitely don't, because we didn't understand anything for hundreds of thousands of years of human existence with no idea. And in fact, those understandings keep evolving and evolving and evolving. And my analogy for this work, but also just for the human experience generally, is that we will never actually truly objectively understand anything about the human experience. And the reason for that is because we are having the experience. For example, if the ocean got on an interview with you and said, "Can you tell me what I am?" and you said, "Well, you're wet," the ocean would be like, "What's wet?" And you could never, ever explain to it what wetness is. It can never, ever experience being wet because it is wet. And so there are many things about the ocean that we can objectively experience that it will never understand. And in fact, if it tried to understand, it would pull itself apart in distress, because you would say to the ocean, "Well, you're amazing and you have all the fish and you do all these wonderful things, but people drown in you sometimes and it's not great." And then the ocean be, "Oh my God, I don't want people to drown in me. So What do? I got to make myself thicker so people don't drown. But then, of course, what happens? The fish die, So no matter how hard we look, we will never understand many things about what we are. We will never understand it. It's impossible. And so when it comes to energy healing, it's the same thing. The more we look at it to try and understand this part of us, this medicine that resides in humans, we cannot understand it. But we can benefit from it. We can experience it. But it's part of us. So there's no objective view.
What I'm hearing is not to ask a question of how to explain it, but how to ask the question, how can I experience it more?
Correct. How can I experience it more? And when you get the medical community saying this stuff is bad, it's just placebo, it's like, well, you haven't fixed 1 billion people's chronic pain. So just shh. There are people that need help. And even if there's answers that you don't understand, even if there's answers that are the placebo, but it helps a percentage of those people, because even one person in chronic pain is too many. And so if some of these medicines, my form of medicine and others can help one and another, they are real people having a real experience of enormous suffering that's not just affecting them, it's affecting their family, their friends, their relationships, their children, their work, so like,
yeah.
So that's why I just come back to this thing of like, we're not going to understand it, but does it help people? Absolutely. No one questions that. Everyone knows it helps people, whether you call it the placebo or the devil. People know it does relieve people's suffering. So we don't need to know anything other than that.
Thanks so much for being on, man. I appreciate you coming on and have this conversation.
No
Was there anything that you learned in this conversation?
Oh, I'm always learning. I don't know if there's something that stands out as what I've learned, but I do appreciate, to be able to have conversations with people that are, without barriers, is just always a beautiful thing. And it's not always that way, So for experience wise, it's lovely. A lot of stuff we've talked about are obviously things that I've many times had these questions and similar, but I recommend people always have an experience, like what we've just had, where you can just talk and be different and meet somewhere in the middle.
Thanks for being on, man. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure.
I want to thank you for joining me in this conversation. I hope it had some utility. I hope it offered a reflection of what maybe life is shaping you for, and maybe it offered a missing piece to the puzzle of your life. It was a pleasure for me, and I appreciate your time and attention. Please subscribe to our channel so that you can stay abreast of all the new episodes we have coming out. And until next time, thank you so much.
Guts is a Skin Deep media production. The show is produced by Gonzalo Torres Ocampo, edited by Sofia Requeri, with editorial support from Anthony Cabral, and executive produced by me, Topaz Adizes. Special thanks to all the guests who showed guts, without whom there will be no getting under the skin. Interested in joining our community and following this journey? Visit guts.podcast on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok, and theskindeep.com for in-depth conversation card games that create the space for connection, intimacy, and deeper conversation. Thank you for joining me on this journey. Until next time, keep having the guts to get under the skin.